Thank you, Gunjan. Hello and welcome, dear audience, to my presentation. The time is now to prioritize connected ecosystems in the manufacturing industry. My name is Sasa Petrovic. I'm a digital strategy director at Citrix. I'm responsible for the long-term engagements with our customers. So when I have discussions with my customers, we always talk about what is happening in 2 to 3 years. Therefore, we had actually many occasions where we could address or discuss the current challenges. And for me, I noticed actually that supply chain working in a supplier ecosystem is the most pressing challenge that our customers have today. So therefore, I also like this statement: if ever there was a time for the manufacturing industry to future-proof themselves and their supply chains, that time is now. And I also believe that more often than not, the answer lies in IT. Before we talk about the visionary aspects or the trends or the future trends, I always like actually to assess the current mode of operation, or in particular, the challenges and the pain points. Once we understand these critical items, for us, it's also easier to pave the path to future objectives. So in my conversation, we actually have seen 4 different topics coming up quite often. Supply chain disruption in general, cybersecurity threats, digital transformation, and pressure to go green. So the greatest manufacturing challenge remains supply chain disruption. And I can give you just a few quite simple examples. China-US trade war, zero COVID policy in China, every given cargo ship stuck in Suez Canal. I think it showed us in a very impressive way how one ship can actually put our entire supply chain at danger or make it very, very vulnerable. Also, we have raw material shortage, in particular chip shortage, and now in the meantime also war in Ukraine. So we have many different aspects at a very high level or at very high scale, which is impacting our supply chain ecosystem. And this causes a lot of revenue losses, but also delays in all the ecosystem. When we look at the cybersecurity threats, 51% of organizations have experienced a data breach caused by a third party. I personally find this number a little bit too high, but I'm reading quite often annual reports, and this year I would say 10 out of 10 annual reports have cybersecurity risk addressed as one of the 3 top risk items. Also, on top of that, I see quite often third-party management or third-party security mentioned within the annual reports. It is also quite obvious, as soon as you have interfaces or connections, you are exposed to some certain degree. And what I see quite often in my customer conversations is actually that the access model is not assessed enough. I would say that the access model is not aligned to the zero trust models we have today. Digital transformation. I know digital transformation is, from a terminology perspective, a little bit exhausted, but I think it applies very well to the manufacturing industry. To me, manufacturing is one of the most complex verticals. We have blue-collar workers, we have logistics, production workers, we have R&D and engineering, which are some sort of hybrid workers. And then we also have a lot of white-collar workers, such as sales, IT, or legal departments. So all of them have different user requirements. And this one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work anymore. We need to have tailored solution in order to increase efficiency and productivity. The last part is pressure to go green. So manufacturing is one of the largest causes of environmental pollution. And if I also compare the manufacturing industry to FSI or tech vendors, I think that it is much more difficult to reach the net zero targets. Tech vendors, they have quite ambitious targets, so they want to become net zero in 2030. Telecommunication providers, somewhere between 2035 and 2040. Manufacturing is somewhere between 2040 and 2050. But also we have to consider here the supply chain. So the entire value chain has to be sustainable in order to reach the net zero targets. So what are the imperatives? When we look actually at the different challenges, we had first supply chain disruption. Supply chain correction is actually the first imperative. In the past, we were always laser focused on productivity. In the meantime, we have to shift a little bit our focus to agility and resilience. So agility and resilience are key priorities in order to continue to scale. We need to be prepared actually for unforeseen events. We need to be able to react faster in these events. We also need to be prepared for any sort of next disruptions. Increasing responsiveness, well, it is quite simple. We have also to rethink our entire supply chain strategy. As I said before, here as well, one size fits all doesn't work. Every customer or every organization has to find actually its own way how we are dealing with supply chain issues. It can be multi-channel. We can also identify new partners, or we can also work with smaller startups to become more agile. One of our large German customers is working more and more with smaller startups because they have a size, or they have reached actually a size where they cannot actually be agile and resilient. So they are working with startups to make the product launches faster and faster. For them, for example, time to market, time to value, fast onboarding and fast offboarding of contractors and M&As is a huge priority. Finding the balance between agility, resilience, productivity, and efficiency is very, very important. And I see actually here three technical items which can help us to find the balance. First of all, automation. I know we need to invest in automation first, but I think it will pay off. We can reduce with automation also at some point our entire costs because we will be able to work more efficient. Cloud is already an ongoing trend, but cloud, especially in supplier ecosystem, makes a lot of sense because we can increase the scalability, and that will also, after all, increase the resilience. Analytics, to me, a very, very important matter because we have so much data. We as a human cannot cope with that volume of data. So we need to get better control of our supply chain, and we need to have better visibility. So with analytics, we are also able to react in real time. Cybersecurity, I'm very glad that it remains one of the top priorities of executives all around the globe. So even in 2023, we see a higher investment in cybersecurity because we had actually a lack of security. However, I always say security is only as good as the weakest link. Most often, the weakest link is actually the human. So we have a lack of digital skills, or we have also a lack of or a gap of cybersecurity talents. What we will see is also higher investment in cloud and also in managed security services in order to overcome or master these challenges. So, as I said, digital transformation, we have actually a quite complex environment here in manufacturing. But what I haven't mentioned yet is actually that we are also in the manufacturing space competing or facing actually a new competition, tech vendors. And here is the problem. We are very slow in the digital transformation within the manufacturing space. We need actually to increase the pace here because the tech vendors, they are already more or less digital natives, or they are living in this digital first world. That means if you have digitized your processes and if you have a lot of modern IT systems, you can scale or you can produce much, much more than old-fashioned companies. So we have a pressure from this side as well. Now, ultimately, the goal is actually to provide new business models, to provide the consumers new modern products. But how to provide these new modern products? If you have an old-fashioned IT, if you have an old-fashioned ecosystem, it will be not possible. The first step which you need to do is actually to modernize the existing IT. That is the fundament or the baseline of every innovation in the meantime, because you need to have a digital platform. That is the key in order to grow. Once you have the technology, or let's say even in parallel, you need to prepare the processes. And at that point, I'm a firm believer that IT and also line of business needs to come closer. What I mean with that is IT needs to have a better understanding of the business objectives, and vice versa. The line of business needs to scale up their digital skills. They need to enhance actually the digital skills. It needs to be a more fluid organization so that we can really provide ultimately new business models, new modern solutions, digital solutions, which will the consumer eventually take and work. So sustainability, also one of our key areas. what we see is actually that the younger generation is caring a little bit more about sustainability than we. I would also say that because the younger generation doesn't only consume products which are sustainable, they really look after the entire value chain. The market has to change. And also we will generate this way, because there is a huge demand, we will also generate a sustainability market after all. However, in order to provide sustainable products, the entire value chain needs to be adjusted or aligned. I also think that we need to have a better governance in place. I know this statement might be a little bit harsh, but we need finally to walk the talk. We need to have more governance. And what I mean with that is we have quite good sustainability targets on a corporate level. We have also quite good corporate marketing messaging usually when it comes to sustainability. But in my customer conversations, what I miss is actually measurable sustainability targets on IT business units. I'm a firm believer, as long as we don't have IT targets on IT level, we don't have really a tangible vision or objective to follow. So while technology is also an emitter to the CO2 footprint, I also believe it is a main driver. What we see in our conversations at our customers is that artificial intelligence, automation in general, digital twins, and the concept of hybrid worker is contributing actually in order to reduce the sustainability footprint. What I also like is one of our pharmaceutical customers here in Europe, they have already a governance function in place. And what I found very interesting, and I think it's the right step to do, is they are going through a governance process while purchasing products. So every vendor has to reduce to some degree the CO2 footprint through energy consumption or more efficient energy consumption. So we reflected the challenges, we looked after the imperatives, but what about the approach? How can we actually, what kind of concepts can we use in order to address all these challenges and imperatives? So we did together, and IDC was here actually in the lead and research. And in order to become or to reach this digital first world, we see three different pillars, same actually what just Stephanie mentioned. We see scale, impact, and trust. And with scale, we mean that the infrastructure itself needs to be more flexible. As I said before, it needs to be more agile to react in unforeseen events. That is currently a pressure, that is currently a very urgent item. Second, we have impact. So the IT systems or the IT ecosystem needs to provide better values to the line of business. As I said before, line of business and IT have to come closer here. Last but not least, trust. I see two items here. First of all, it's the culture, and second, it's the technology. Technology is focusing more on security, while as culture needs to actually embrace all the different aspects. We need to change our culture mindset in order to be able to innovate. And agility to me is also based on trust. We from Citrix and also Cloud Software Group have aligned three different solution types to these pillars. First of all, NetScaler to scale, Citrix Desktop as a Service to impact, and Citrix Secure Private Access to trust. I'm not going here into more details, but I'm highly recommending our research, which will be published quite soon by IDC and Citrix. And also don't hesitate to reach out to me via the IDC platform or LinkedIn. Thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the conference.